most amazing artist. I hope you are having an awesome day today. Welcome to week 2 of our op art weavings. Last week we learned all about the art movement called op art. Artists would use optical illusions to trick the human eye. Especially the artist that we looked at, his name was Vasarely, and he used optical illusions in his art as well. So what we did last week was we chose a certain color scheme. A color scheme is a group of colors that usually are put together in artwork. So you had lots of different choices, and I decided to use neutral colors, browns, blacks, whites, and grays to create my painted piece of paper. Now we're going to turn this piece of paper into our loom. We are going to start the weaving process, and you cannot do a weaving without the loom. The loom is kind of the machine that you would weave onto if you were using yarn. We're just making a paper weaving, so we have to create our own loom. And you have a couple of different options for how you would like your loom to look. Depending on how you cut your loom today is going to determine how your overall weaving is going to look. So I've done some examples for you to show you what each of these would look like if you were to choose to cut your loom like this. So the first one is kind of diagonal lines going towards the center, and your weaving will look something like this. It's very geometric and it's wider in the middle. And the second option on this paper, which is on your Google Classroom if you're in my online classes, so you can look at this for reference as you need it this week, is these curved lines. Instead of straight diagonal lines, you will use curved lines to create your loom. And if you choose to do that, it will come out looking like this, to where it has kind of two sections and it's still wider in the middle, but is a lot more organic than this one, which is a lot more geometric. And the last one is if you decide to cut wavy lines into your loom, your weaving will look something like this. It's very wavy and it has a lot of movement to it. So you're going to choose one of these ways to cut your loom today. Okay, so I really love this one right here. I love the geometric aspects to it, and I think it looks really cool and it creates a really interesting optical illusion. So I am going to use the diagonal lines, but feel free to choose whichever one of these three that you would like to. So now that I've chosen the one that I want, I'm ready to start creating my loom. And all you need is your paper that you colored or you painted last week and a pair of scissors. The rest of it is going to be folding, and that's the first thing we are going to do. I'm going to make sure my loom is vertical. That means it's going up and down. If it was this way, it would be horizontal, which means it's going from side to side. So what I'm going to do is I want it to be vertical, and I'm going to fold the bottom edge of my paper up to the top edge. So we are essentially folding this piece of paper in half. And I'm trying to get the edges to line up almost perfectly up here at the top. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but we want them to line up almost perfectly. And then I'm going to fold down on this edge. Okay, so now I have a piece of paper that is folded in half vertically. And I'm just going to take this top flap here, and I am going to take the top of this half of my paper on top here. I'm going to leave this bottom half alone. And I'm going to take the top of it and I'm going to fold a little section backwards to make a 1-inch panel right here. And I'm going to fold it down. Again, it does not have to be perfect. When doing this, don't make it too skinny because then it's going to be very hard to use in a second. We need it to be at least 1 inch wide, okay? So I have folded my paper in half vertically, and on the top half, I folded just a little section about 1 inch backwards, and I folded it down. So now I'm gonna push this back up, and what we just folded on this section of our paper is called the stop line. You might notice it on our reference sheet here. This little dotted line on this sheet is supposed to represent the stop line, and that is the line where our scissors are going to stop cutting. If you cut all the way past this stop line right here that we just folded, then your loom is going to be cut into a couple of pieces, and we don't want this loom to be cut in half. We don't want any pieces of this loom to be falling off. At the end of today, you should have one entire piece of paper with some cuts in it. okay? So we don't want to cut any pieces off of this. We only want to cut up to the stop line. Once our scissors hit this line, then we know it's time to stop cutting. So like I said, I have decided to do the diagonal line one for my loom, but you can choose whichever one you want to. And down here at the bottom, this is the folded edge of my paper. So that's where my scissors are going to start cutting. If you cut on the open side of your paper, then you're gonna cut it in half. And like I just said, we don't wanna do that. So make sure whenever you start cutting your lines, you always start your scissors on the folded edge, and it says it right here. Folded edge is at the bottom, my stop line is right here, and I'm ready to cut some diagonal lines into my loom. If it helps you and you like to plan before you cut, because cutting is permanent, then you can take a pencil and you can kind of sketch out where you want to cut on your loom. I think this is actually a really good idea to do because we want to make sure we have enough room for each of our cuts. And this line here is actually going to the corner of my loom, and I don't want it to hit the corner exactly. So it's a good thing that I am drawing this out first. I'm sketching it out because we don't want our cuts to start on the corner. We want to come in a little bit. So I'm gonna try to fix that with these lines here. So what I'm basically doing is I'm copying this over onto my loom to kind of sketch it out first and make sure I have enough room for my scissors to cut. And if we count, we only need to cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strips into our loom. Don't do more than 6. Because then it could get a little bit confusing. So I have 3 diagonal lines on the left side and I have 3 on the right side. So that is what I'm going to try to draw. Okay, so I've copied my choice over here, which is the diagonal lines, over onto my loom. And you're gonna do the same whether you want the curvy one or the wavy one. And now I'm ready to start cutting. And like I said a second ago, we always want to start cutting on the folded edge, okay? So I am just going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut where I put the pencil line. And I'm going to cut on that line until I get to the stop line. When I get to the stop line, we know we need to stop cutting. If you cut past this stop line and cut the diagonal line all the way through your paper towards the top, then this huge piece of your loom is going to fall off. Now, if that does happen on accident, that's fine, but we need to try to be mindful to not cut past the stop line. Okay, so let me do one more with you guys. Just cutting right where I put that pencil line until I get to the stop line, and then I'm gonna stop cutting. Okay, and what we start to have are those lines in our loom, which create this really cool design once we start to weave next week. So what I'm gonna do is I'll finish cutting the rest of my lines and then I'll be right back to show you what my loom is looking like. All right, I just finished cutting all 6 of my lines into my loom, starting on the folded edge, going up and not cutting past the stop line. And now what I have is a completed loom that is ready to be woven on. And we are going to start weaving next week. I hope you guys have a lot of fun creating your loom today, and I cannot wait to start weaving with you guys next week because that is the true fun part of this project. I can't wait to see how your looms are turning out. I know they're going to be amazing because you guys are amazing. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.